Well, today I'm back making one of my pet projects, and that is a squaring jig. And I've made these in the past, and I keep having to redo them. So today I'm making something special. It's going to be adjustable or realignable, and I've never done that before. So I'm just going to jump right in, and as we go along, I'm going to show you all the features that we can do with this. So the first thing I need to do is flip this over because we're going to be using some T-nuts. Now I'm going to be drilling holes through the base of my jig here, and I don't needlessly need to make holes in my workbench, so I use this sacrificial bottom, and all this is foam, and I use the same foam. You've probably seen me doing this on some of my tips and jigs for my circular saw so that I can penetrate the wood. You put the wood down, the circular saw will cut all the way through, and it doesn't damage what's underneath because it's just foam. It's light, it's easy to work with, and I just love using this stuff. So there's the base, and what I need to do now is I'm going to clamp on the top and the bottom so I get an idea where to drill holes. Let me show you what a T-nut looks like. So this is what a T-nut looks like, and it's just what it describes. It's a nut, and you can put a bolt into it to hold it instead of a traditional bolt or a traditional nut. Now what this does is if we drill a hole through a piece of wood, we can actually drive this. See, it's got little teeth in here. You can drive this through the wood, and then you can fasten the bolt from underneath. Now, in order to do that, I want this to sit flush, and I've taken a Forstner bit to check, and that one is a perfect fit for that. So what I need to do now, I'm going to be drilling some pilot holes, not in this piece of wood, but in my base, some pilot holes, and then a Forstner bit hole so that this will sit flush when I turn it back over. So okay, so I've got the platen elevated, as you can see, and it's sitting on clamps, and I'm going to flip it over because I'm going to be doing some drilling from the underside. But before I get to that, I've already taken this and I've taken a few minutes to align it, and it's perfectly aligned right now. But when it gets finished, I'm going to have a very small tolerance where I can really fine tune it, and that's the purpose of putting bolts in here rather than gluing it down, which is what I've done in the past. Now, some of you over the last several years have made comments about me using carpenter squares, and some of you have suggested that these are not square, and I don't know where some of you might be getting your tools from, but the ones that I have are square, and you only have to buy these once in a lifetime. I only buy steel ones, and when I got them, I checked them to make sure that they were square. I actually have two of them, one I inherited and one I purchased. The one that I purchased was square. The one that I inherited as steel square was off a tiny bit. You can fix those, and I'll put a link for the video that I did on that in Woodwork Web in the article on this. The other thing that you won't see, my squares, I round off the corner here, and that's because sometimes when I'm aligning these things, there's something in the corner that is going to get in the way, a bump of some description, and I don't care about this when I'm aligning it. I care about this and this. So having that sort of ground off of there actually makes it easier for me to align things. So there's a little tip that you might need to do to yours as well. So let's flip these over and we'll start installing the T-nuts. Okay, first of all, we'll align, just so we make sure that we get these holes in the same plane. Not that it's that critical, but okay. And I'm just going to eyeball this. It's not really that critical. So drilling for recessed T-nuts is a bit of a process because your Forstner bit, there's my Forstner bit, see the bit has a little nub on the bottom of it, and that's so that it doesn't wander around, and you have to drill a bit of a pilot hole to keep it from moving around. And I don't want to go too deep here. And I just check that to make sure that when I flip it over, it'll be below the surface. Okay, that's good. I'll just go ahead and do the other 3. That's why I didn't want to damage my workbench. Oh, it fits right in there. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and drill the other 3 holes with that. When I told you drilling holes for these T-nuts is a process, it is. Now, I can put a bolt through the hole, but the problem, the T-nut now doesn't fit in there because, of course, the bolt goes into it. So there's thread that I have to compensate for. So I need to drill 1 more hole, and it turns out that it's a couple sizes bigger, but it only has to go down just far enough, just that depth. So I'm just going to drill that, and that should fit in there like that. Yeah, you see that? That's good. All right, I'll do the other 3 with that. Okay, I've taken the clamps off, and I just put some bolts on the inside like that just to hold the arms, because now I'm going to do some hammering. I want to seat these T-nuts in there. There it is there. And basically, we just hammer them in, but I'm also going to use, I have an old socket that I use, that I'm just going to use that to seat that once it gets started. So hold our ears here. Okay, you can see this is flipped up the way it's going to be used, and just for fun, I checked with the square, and yep, it's dead on. It stayed dead on, so that's good. I don't need to make any adjustments, but it's not finished yet. And let me tell you why I'm using wood like this. This is a hardwood in here, and if you look carefully, you'll notice that it's laminated. It's the same thing as what I did on the crosscut jig on the table saw. And when we laminate wood together, it stays very, very stable. And I was using plywood in here, but I've grown to not like the plywood in there because some of it tends to chip on the corners, and I want to have nice hard corners on this. I don't want this to be soft. So everything is working well now, but I have a couple things to do. The first thing I'm going to do is take this arm off, and what I'm going to do is coat it with wax, because this will be a gluing surface, and I don't want glue to stick to it. So if I wax it, that will help to keep the glue from sticking to it. I'm also going to glue along the insides here so that any glue that might run down will just fall onto the wax and not stick. I need to wax this side as well. And when I come to putting it back together, I'm going to use this anti-skid material, and that's going to help keep it stable. It's also going to lift it slightly so that whenever if I get any sawdust or chips in there, it'll lift it enough that I'll be able to get those chips out of there, so that I make sure that I get good tight corners. So we'll show you this as we move along. So all I'm using here is just ordinary paraffin wax, and the reason I take this off is because I can give it a really good coating with it off, and you don't have to worry about this coming off on wood. I've never had paraffin wax come off and sort of spoil a finish or anything like that. Now, of course, we'll wipe it down and get the little bits of it off. And now I want to do the same thing on the base here. And because I've taken the arm off here, I can get a good coating down here. I can actually see it from the angle that I'm at, and go right to the end. Okay, that's looking good. Now I want to do one last check here. And what I want to do, I just want to elevate the square up a little bit off the deck here so that it's a little bit higher up. Put that against that. Now I have my feeler gauge out here. I've got the thinnest one. It looks perfect to me, but I'm going to check. This is 0.003 of an inch or 0.076 of a millimeter. So I just want to check and see. Yeah, I can't even get that in there. It's like right straight up against that. So that's good. But if for some reason this goes out of alignment, all I need to do is make either this hole or this hole, just enlarge it ever so slightly, just another drill bit size, and that will give it enough play that you would be able to realign this thing. And when you've got the anti-skid material underneath that, that's going to lock it in place. So I mounted the clamps in there, and this there's all sorts of things that you might want to use this for. What I didn't tell you about is this crack in here, which is done obviously on purpose, and that's so that if dirt or dust builds up in there, you can get that out. So the way the jig works is you slide it up to the top, then you butt up the cross piece to it, and now you can line all the rest of the pieces just like that. And if you wanted to use a clamp on it, you could do that. So let's take a moment to take a sampling of just some of the things that you could use this for. Picture frames, cabinet door frames, things like footstools, smaller tables. Put the base down and line the sides. Box making, or even drawer making. You could even use it for aligning cabinets. Well, that concludes my video for today, but before you run away, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done that. And the video that I did a couple of weeks ago on the crosscut sled for the table saw and this squaring jig is leading me to another special video that I'm making up in a couple of weeks. It's going to be something that you're going to want to see. For those of you who are interested in making furniture and parts of furniture, this is going to be an interesting video coming up for you. In the meantime, I made a video a few years ago on the wobble wheel. It was very popular, and I'm going to be revisiting a very small portion of that in the near future. So if you don't know what a wobble wheel is, go and have a look at that video so that when we come to that video coming up, you'll have a little better idea on what that is. I'm Colin Kennett for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.